Awaken your spirit, chosen one. You weren't made to blend in. You were born with something rare in a world that fears what it can't control. You felt the sting of whispers behind your back, rumors woven with poison, lies painted to look like truth. But don't be mistaken. Those weren't random attacks. That gossip was spiritual warfare. It wasn't your name they were after. It was your power. It was your peace. It was your divine light that made the snakes hiss and the shadows chatter. They thought they were burying your name in dirt, but they forgot one thing. Seeds grow in silence. You've heard the gossip. Maybe it came from people you trusted. Maybe it came from family, from co-workers, from a circle you once called safe. They twisted your kindness into manipulation. They took your silence as guilt. They couldn't understand your strength, so they called it arrogance. But here's the twist. What they meant for humiliation is becoming your elevation. The very lies they used to drag you are now turning around to reveal them for what they truly are. The gossip, it's starting to rot. The story, it's falling apart. And the people who once turned their backs on you are beginning to see the truth, clearer than ever, because real ones always rise. And you didn't defend yourself. You didn't run around trying to correct every false narrative. You stayed grounded. You let God handle what your flesh wanted to fix. And now the divine reversal is here. People are seeing that you weren't the villain, you were the victim of projection. You weren't hiding, you were healing. You weren't being silent because you were weak. You were letting heaven speak for you. And heaven never stutters. If the truth of your identity had been exposed too soon, they would have destroyed you before your purpose ever had a chance to blossom. That's why God allowed the rumors. Not because he was punishing you, but because he was protecting what couldn't yet be revealed. The lies were loud, but your destiny was louder. And now your enemies are being left behind. Not because you said a word, not because you fought back, but because the truth has gravity, and eventually everything fake falls away. The divine has a way of letting people dig their own holes. They thought they were burying you with words, but all they did was plant a story they couldn't finish, and now they're choking on the narrative they created, because it doesn't match who you truly are. People are starting to see it. They're starting to say, wait, this person is nothing like what I heard. They're waking up to the contrast between who you are and who you were painted to be. And in that contrast, the liars are being exposed. The crowd is shifting. The room is clearing. And the spotlight, once dimmed by doubt, is now revealing your divine truth. You don't have to chase validation. When you're chosen, your presence speaks before you do. And even the ones who once entertained the lies are beginning to regret it. They see your strength, your peace, your glow, your growth, and suddenly they're embarrassed they ever believed the gossip in the first place. Let this be a reminder to you, your power isn't in what people say about you. It's in how you carry yourself when you know the truth. You don't need revenge. You don't need to clap back. You just need to keep walking in purpose, because God has already flipped the script. The gossip that once echoed in rooms you weren't in, it's being drowned out by applause. For you, because the same mouths that cursed you are being silenced by the fruit you now carry. Like this video, subscribe and comment. God flipped the script if you know that no lie, no rumor, and no weapon formed will ever stop what's already been ordained for you. You're not just surviving this season, you're rising because of it. Let them talk. Let God move. Chosen one. You didn't just survive the storm. You were the storm. You walked through rooms that were dripping in envy, smiling like you didn't feel the heat. You heard the whispers behind your back, but you didn't flinch. They threw your name in dirt, but you never crawled to clear it. And now look at you, still standing, still shining, still chosen. You see, they didn't gossip because you were weak. They gossiped because your presence exposed everything fake in the room. You didn't need to speak. Your silence was louder than their noise. You didn't play their game, so they made you the villain. But what they didn't realize is that when you carry divine favor, every lie told against you becomes a stepping stone toward your elevation. The ones who talked the loudest about you were never on your level. They were just hoping no one else would see the truth, that you were everything they pretended to be. Gossip is the echo of a powerless spirit. It's the cry of someone who sees your light and can't stand that it's not theirs. It's not about your mistakes, it's about your magnitude. People don't gossip about the irrelevant. They gossip about the radiant, about the ones who walk with unshakable grace, about the ones who carry peace in the middle of chaos. That's you. They didn't come after you because you were wrong. They came after you because you were right in ways they didn't understand. Your joy made them uncomfortable. Your growth challenged their stagnancy. Your elevation reminded them of everything they weren't willing to become. And instead of doing the work, they chose the shortcut, tear down the chosen one so they can feel tall in the shadow of your fall. But you didn't fall. You rose. You rose when they expected you to crumble. You smiled when they hoped you'd snap. You healed in silence, and they missed the moment where God rewrote your name in gold. See, a lot of people only love you as long as you're beneath them, as long as you stay small, stay quiet, stay easy to define. But when you step into your truth, when your light starts to stretch into rooms they thought were theirs, suddenly you're too much. Too loud, too confident, too unbothered. So they create stories, not because they know you, but because they fear that others will. And the more you become who you truly are, the more their mask slips. But listen closely. Chosen one, gossip, only sticks when you give it glue. You gave them nothing, no clapbacks, no rage, no desperation to be liked. And that is what's haunting them now. You didn't fight for a seat at their table because deep down you knew God was preparing one for you in front of them. They expected you to play defense. You walked away in peace. They expected tears. You gave them transformation. They expected bitterness. You gave God your pain and walked with purpose. And that's what's shifting everything. Your silence was never weakness. It was strategy. A quiet storm doesn't ask for attention. It simply shows up and rearranges the entire sky. You didn't need to prove anything. Time revealed it all. And now the same people who laughed at the rumors are questioning why they ever believed them. Because the truth always outlives the lie. They tried to distort your image, but what they didn't know is you are not your reputation. You are your reality. You're the prayers you prayed when no one was watching. You're the healing you did when it felt impossible. You're the grace you gave when people gave you cruelty. And that truth, it shines through every lie. And now the crowd is shifting. The applause is coming from places you never expected. The eyes are opening. People are starting to see you for who you really are. Not the story they were fed, but the soul you carried through every storm. The real ones, they're walking toward you, the fake ones. They're exposing themselves by the minute, because here's the thing. Gossip backfires when the one being talked about keeps growing. They thought the rumors would stop you, but the rumors only made you more relevant, more watched, more studied. They gave you free marketing while God was working behind the scenes. And now their mouths are quiet and your purpose is loud. Let me speak directly to your soul now. You are the treasure they mishandled. You are the crown they tried to knock off. And no matter how many times they tried to distort your light, they couldn't dim it. Because your light wasn't given to you by man. It was placed there by God. Protected, anointed, timed to shine. Exactly when it was needed most. You didn't need to prove them wrong. You just had to keep becoming who you are. And now your existence is the proof. Your peace is the proof. Your favor is the proof. Your elevation is the proof. Because when God blesses you publicly after you were torn down privately, no explanation is required. The fruit speaks for itself. And the ones who tried to break you, they're losing people. Not because you said anything, but because their words don't line up with your spirit. People are watching, and they see the difference between bitterness and brilliance, between those who destroy and those who build in silence. And guess what? You're being celebrated, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it through grace. The game is shifting, chosen one. The lies are unraveling. The tables are turning, and the one thing they never expected. People are choosing you, believing in you, admiring you, rooting for you, because when the gossip fades, only the truth remains. And your truth is beautiful, unshakable, divine. You were never meant to fit into their broken narratives. You were sent to break the mold, to disrupt the lies with quiet strength, to shake atmospheres just by showing up, to awaken something holy in a world numbed by pretense. They can't touch what they can't understand, and they never understood that your silence was sacred, that your distance was discernment, that your kindness was strength, that your stillness was power. You weren't ignoring them. You were aligning with heaven. And now everything is aligning with you. You're not here to fight for approval. You're here to walk in purpose. You're not here to win over hearts that chose to misunderstand you. You're here to lead hearts that recognize the divine in you. That's why you're still standing. That's why the very lies that were supposed to destroy you are now working in your favor. That's why people are walking away from those who tried to bury you, because they're realizing you were the seed, not the problem. And seeds, when buried in the right soil, don't die. They bloom. You, chosen one, are blooming now. And the world is watching. Sometimes the most painful moments in your life weren't meant to break you. They were designed to reveal who was truly for you. God didn't allow the betrayal so you'd become bitter. He allowed it so you could see clearly. So you could stop confusing proximity with loyalty. So you'd stop watering relationships that were only rooted in convenience, not covenant. You needed to see what people would say about you when they thought you weren't listening. You needed to witness what would be spoken in your absence, because those conversations revealed hearts more than words ever could. When the slander started, when the gossip ran wild, you didn't know it. But it was a divine setup. God wasn't letting the rumors spread to embarrass you. He was using them to expose the intention of every single person in your circle. Some stood by you. Some went silent. Some smiled in your face and co-signed your downfall in private. And while it hurt, it also freed you. You were never meant to walk with the crowd. You were meant to walk with the called, chosen one. You had to go through the fire of being misunderstood so you could be refined into discernment. You needed the sting of betrayal so your spirit could learn what fake love feels like. Because when your purpose is as big as yours, you can't afford to carry dead weight. You can't build the divine future that's calling you forward with people who only loved you when you were silent, soft, and manageable. They loved the version of you that didn't threaten their comfort. But your growth, your voice, your light, it made them uneasy. So the divine shook the table, allowed the masks to slip. You didn't lose those people. You were delivered from them. Because God heard conversations you didn't, saw jealousy behind eyes that smiled. And before your next level could begin, you had to be uncoupled from the sabotage hiding in plain sight. Some of the people who clapped for you were only doing it because they didn't think you'd ever surpass them. But when you started rising, when you began moving differently, when your name started carrying weight they couldn't match, their applause turned into accusation. Their congratulations turned into critique. And it wasn't because you changed. It was because your authenticity exposed their performance. Let that sink in. You didn't ask to be a mirror. But the light in you reflects what's in others, and not everyone can handle what their own reflection reveals. And while they gossiped, judged, and tried to tarnish what they couldn't touch, God was setting the stage, separating the real from the fake. And now, the separation is undeniable. You're seeing it in conversations that don't feel the same, in energy that doesn't flow the way it used to, in invitations that stopped coming or alliances that fell apart without a fight. That's not coincidence, that's clarity, because elevation demands separation. And while the false ones fell away, there were people watching silently. People who never said your name, but never bought into the lies. People who discerned something different in you, something real, something holy, something that couldn't be captured in gossip or twisted by rumor. And now those quiet watchers are becoming vocal supporters, not because you asked them to, but because they watched you endure with grace. They watched you stay kind when you were slandered. They watched you keep your peace when you had every right to rage. And that kind of strength, that kind of spiritual maturity, it moves people. It changes the atmosphere. It draws in the souls that are hungry for truth. Don't be surprised when people begin defending you without you ever asking. When rooms that once echoed with lies suddenly grow silent when your name is brought up. That's not coincidence either. That's spiritual justice unfolding in real time. You were mocked in public, but now you're being validated in secret places. And soon, even that will become public testimony. See, you're not just a person. You're a movement, a message, a walking example of what it means to carry yourself with divine authority, even in the face of dishonor. And the very ones who tried to tear you down, they're watching their own influence dissolve. Not because you curse them, but because they tried to curse someone who was covered. That's what happens when people mess with the anointed. Their words don't land, they ricochet, their attacks don't destroy, they boomerang. And now, here you are, thriving in the ashes of their intentions. You didn't retaliate because you understood something deeper. You are not them. You are not governed by petty revenge or ego. You walk with a different code, a divine one, and that's why you win. Not just in the natural, but in the spirit. You win because your heart stayed pure. You win because you didn't let the bitterness in. You win because you knew that if God allowed it, it must have been working something in your favor, and favor doesn't shout. It shows up. It's showing up in the peace you now carry, in the blessings that are overtaking you, in the glow on your face that no makeup can replicate, in the peace in your home, the clarity in your mind, the divine protection that keeps you 2 steps ahead of every trap. You're not paranoid, you're prophetic. You feel things others miss. You see beyond the surface. That's why they couldn't fool you forever. That's why the energy shift was enough. You didn't need evidence, you needed alignment. And once the energy no longer matched your peace, you knew what needed to go. That's wisdom, that's spiritual authority. That's why you're not chasing friendships anymore. You're attracting divine connections, people who see you not for what they heard, but for the spirit you carry. People who speak your name in rooms you're not in with honor. People who protect your reputation the same way you protect your peace. And make no mistake, the ones who dishonored you are watching this happen. They're seeing the shift, feeling the weight of what they lost. Not because you're being petty, but because the absence of your presence is a sermon all by itself. You didn't have to announce your departure. Your peace preached the message. Your growth screamed the goodbye. You've become a mirror they can't look into anymore. And that's okay. Let them watch from a distance. Let them sit with the consequences of trying to crucify someone God already resurrected. Because, chosen one, you are unstoppable when you stay aligned. And that's the secret. Not fighting battles you're too elevated for. Not arguing with shadows. Not reacting to noise, just moving in silence, glowing in grace. And letting God do the talking. That's why doors are opening for you now that no one can shut. That's why rooms that were once closed are now making space for your name. That's why the same people who questioned your worth are now asking, how you did it. They don't realize they were part of the process. Their rejection, fuel. Their betrayal, redirection. Their gossip, a divine spotlight they didn't mean to give you. And now you're rising. And the beauty is, you don't have to announce it. It's written all over you. Chosen one. What they thought would break you only prepared the world to witness your rise. You see, what they didn't know is that your story was written by a higher hand, one that sees in full what others only glimpse in part. They thought their gossip would be the final word, that if they spread enough lies, shaded your name long enough, and convinced enough people, they could bury you for good. But what they didn't realize is that they were digging a ditch for themselves, and all the while, God was digging your foundation. Because in the kingdom, it's never the loudest voice that carries the most weight. It's the one that stands in truth, the one that knows when to speak and when to stand still. And while they were busy trying to tear you down in the eyes of others, God was building you up in the secret place. The ones who were meant to walk away did, and it had to be that way. Because if they stayed, they would have blocked your blessing. If they stayed, they would have polluted your purpose. If they stayed, they would have kept you questioning your worth every time your spirit outgrew their comfort zone. So don't grieve the loss of what God rescued you from. Don't mourn what had to go so you could finally become. This is the season where heaven reverses roles. The first shall be last. The mocked shall be magnified, and those who once had the loudest voices in the room will be forced to watch in silence as you are elevated by a power they never respected, but now can't ignore. Because this isn't just about vindication, it's about revelation. God is revealing who you are in a way that can no longer be denied. The fruit is undeniable. The shift is undeniable. The glow is undeniable. And no lie formed against you can overshadow the glory of what's unfolding in your life right now. You didn't retaliate. You didn't expose. You didn't stoop to their level. You rose. And in doing so, you proved something they never expected. You're not driven by ego. You're moved by purpose. And that scares people who thrive off control, because they can't manipulate what they can't understand. And they can't control a spirit that takes orders from heaven. You became a quiet threat, not by being loud, not by forcing attention, but by being consistent, by staying rooted, by staying true. And now, the ones who once gathered in rooms to destroy your name are watching their own influence wither, not because you fought back, but because truth is a harvest, and yours is ripe. And now, people are seeing the shift. Where once your name was followed by whispers, now it's followed by honor. Where once you were dismissed, now you are being discerned. Where once you were overlooked, now people can't stop watching you. Not out of curiosity, but out of awe. Because there's something undeniable about someone who didn't fold in the fire. Something sacred about someone who chose peace over revenge. Something powerful about someone who walks like they're already crowned, because they know who sent them. Chosen one, this is your season of divine reversal. This is when heaven makes an open spectacle of everything the enemy tried to destroy you with. And it won't be through revenge. It won't be through clapbacks. It will be through fruit, through favor, through the glow of someone who was forged in betrayal but bloomed in purpose. The very people who thought they ruined you will be forced to admit they were wrong. And not because you rubbed it in their faces, but because the difference between your spirit and theirs speaks volumes. Because when the dust settled, you had peace. They had bitterness. You had favor. They had followers. And now the followers are walking away because people can sense truth even when it was once hidden. It was never about popularity. It was about power, spiritual power, the kind that can't be earned with applause or status, the kind that is given by God, refined in silence and revealed through endurance. And you, chosen one, endured. You didn't just survive what they did. To you, you transformed. You shed the old self. You released the need to be understood. You stopped waiting for the apology and started walking in your authority. That's what scares them now. Not what you lost, but what you found. Yourself, your voice, your mission, your discernment. And now the same people who counted you out are watching you rise. The same ones who mocked your silence are baffled by your strength. The same ones who walked away are trying to figure out how you're still glowing when they tried to dim your light. And the truth is, you're glowing because you didn't just heal. You grew. You allowed the pain to teach you. You allowed the betrayal to purify your circle. You let the rejection become redirection. You let go of what was never meant to hold you and made space for what heaven has always been preparing for you. This is a new era, not just for your outer life, but for your inner self. You're not the same. You don't entertain what you used to. You don't beg for access anymore. You don't explain your light to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't lower your volume for the comfort of cowards. And now that you've made peace with who you are, God is making peace with everything that tried to come against you. The warfare is ending. The weight is lifting, and everything that felt like delay was really divine preparation. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. Positioned for an unveiling that no gossip can cover, for a glory that no slander can touch, for a victory that no betrayal can undo. This is the season where your scars speak louder than their stories, where your resilience becomes your response, where your authenticity becomes your authority, where your elevation becomes your evidence. So walk boldly now. Walk like someone who's already been vindicated in heaven. Talk like someone who knows their value doesn't come from opinion, but from origin. Move like someone who carries the anointing that can't be replicated. Stand like someone whose past has been rewritten by grace and whose future is drenched in favor. Because this is your moment, chosen one, not to clap back, not to prove anything, but to embody what heaven knew about you all along. You are royalty in disguise, a force in the flesh, a vessel of divine light walking in a world that thrives on shadows, and still you shine without trying, without needing permission, without chasing validation. You shine because it's who you are, and when you shine from within, the darkness can't touch you. It can only retreat. Let it. Let the shadows fall. Let the rumors fade. Let the tables turn. Let the lies collapse under the weight of your truth. Because the crown wasn't given to you by man. It was bestowed by God. And now, every step you take in your calling, every boundary you protect, every truth you speak, every act of love you extend is evidence of who you are and who you're becoming. You are a living testimony, a walking prophecy fulfilled, a chosen vessel whose light is not just for survival, but for legacy. And your legacy begins now. Chosen one, what you've walked through would have broken most people. The weight, the whispers, the wilderness. It wasn't light, but you carried it with grace, with dignity, with the kind of quiet strength only heaven could have placed within you. You kept moving forward when no one clapped. You kept showing up when no one saw you. And now you're entering a moment where the world will finally see what God has always known about you. You didn't need a stage to become powerful. You didn't need an audience to prove your worth. You became who you are in silence, in sacred spaces, in prayer, in battle, in stillness. You became strong in the shadows where only God could witness your becoming. That's what makes your power so unshakable. It wasn't borrowed, it was built. It was forged in the fire of everything that tried to destroy you. You passed a test not everyone survives. You kept your heart soft in a world that wanted to harden you. You protected your soul in places that fed off manipulation and performance. You said no when it would have been easier to say yes. You walked away when staying would have given you temporary validation, but long-term regret. And even when the path felt lonely, Even when the betrayal felt like it cut too deep, you didn't abandon who you are. That is spiritual strength. That is divine resilience. And now comes the reward for that obedience. Now comes the revelation. Now comes the reality shift, where heaven pours into your life the fruit of everything you endured in faith. This was never about survival. It was about preparation. You weren't just being protected, you were being trained to see beyond the surface, to hear what others miss, to move with wisdom, not desperation, to know when to speak and when silence is the sharpest. Sword in the room, you've become someone who can't be manipulated, someone who doesn't fall for glitter over gold, someone who's grounded in truth so deeply, no amount of pressure can bend your roots. That's why you're dangerous to the dark. Because you're not ruled by the flesh, you're led by spirit, you're not seduced by shortcuts, you trust divine timing, you're not intoxicated by attention, you're intoxicated by alignment, and alignment is what's opening the floodgates now, not because you begged for it, but because you became ready for it, because you stayed the course, because you let the fire purify instead of burn, because you allowed your tears to baptize you into clarity, not bitterness, because you chose transformation over retaliation. Every battle left a scar, but those scars, they don't disfigure you, they distinguish you. They tell a story of someone who faced Goliaths and never bowed, of someone who was buried by false narratives but grew anyway, of someone who was talked about like a curse but walked like a blessing. And you are a blessing. Not because of what you have, not because of what you do, but because of who you are, the way you show up, the way you love, the way you refuse to shrink to make others comfortable, the way your energy shifts rooms without trying. That's not arrogance, that's anointing, and your anointing has a cost. That's why not everyone could go with you. That's why the journey felt like exile. That's why the path narrowed as you walked. But the narrower the path became, the clearer your steps became. Because when you have less noise around you, the voice of God becomes louder than ever. You're not here to blend in. You're here to lead in the Spirit, to carry a presence that awakens people, that breaks chains, that reminds others of who they are. And yes, that makes some people uncomfortable. But you weren't born to be palatable. You were born to be prophetic. You are the answer to someone's prayer, the light in someone's dark room, the calm in someone's chaos, the permission slip for others to be real in a world of masks. And you didn't become that overnight. You became that by bleeding in private, by healing in silence, by trusting the process no matter how long it took. And now your life is a testimony. A mirror that says you can rise too, you can overcome too, you can be chosen too. Because you don't carry superiority, you carry surrender. And that surrender has made you a vessel. And oh, how powerful a surrendered soul can be. Because a surrendered soul can't be bribed, can't be distracted, can't be bought. You know where your strength comes from. And that's why the storms didn't steal your joy. That's why the lies didn't infect your identity. That's why, no matter what was thrown at you, you kept showing up with integrity. Not to prove a point, but to fulfill your assignment. And now, your assignment is unfolding in real time. Doors you didn't knock on are opening. Conversations you weren't invited into are turning in your favor. People who once doubted you are being corrected, not by you, but by the fruit of your endurance. Because fruit always speaks, and your harvest is undeniable. What was done in the dark, it's being reversed in the light. What was meant for evil, it's being used for glory. What was meant to silence you, it became the soil for your voice, to grow louder than ever before. There is nothing accidental about this moment. It's been ordained. The pain had a purpose. The pruning had a promise. And the people who couldn't go, that was protection. Your steps were never wasted. Your obedience was never ignored. And the tears you cried in secret, They watered the ground for this exact season. So walk into it with your head high, with your heart wide open, with your spirit on fire. You didn't come this far to survive. You came to lead, to ignite, to shift, to transform. Your story is not just a testimony. It's a divine instruction manual. It shows others what's possible when you stay aligned, when you choose surrender over bitterness, when you trust the call even when you can't see the full picture. Chosen one, this is not the end. This is not your peak. This is the beginning of a divine expansion you can't even fully comprehend yet, because God doesn't just restore. He multiplies. He doesn't just vindicate, he elevates. He doesn't just bless, he establishes. You're not just favored. You're planted in a season where everything you lost will be replaced with purpose, where the misunderstandings will be replaced with divine revelation, where the rooms you were pushed out of will seem small compared to the platforms being prepared for you now. And as you rise, stay grounded. Remember the fire that made you. Remember the silence that taught you. Remember the God who carried you. Because that humility, that connection, that awareness of where your power really comes from, that's what will keep you steady when the spotlight comes. That's what will protect you from pride, from performance, from pretending. Because you don't need to pretend. You've already been proven, and your life will continue to speak. Long after the gossip fades, long after the critics go silent, long after the fake fall away, your life will speak of resilience, of revelation, of redemption. And anyone who sees you will see the fingerprints of God all over your becoming. Keep going. Keep glowing. Keep choosing peace. Keep choosing truth. Keep choosing alignment. Because the kingdom is watching, heaven is celebrating, and the world is about to witness the full unveiling of what it means to be chosen and obedient, humble and bold, hidden and holy. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, and everything from here is divine overflow. Chosen one. Hear this with your whole heart. You are not ordinary. You never were. You were formed in a space of divine intention, molded in a way that this world can't quite explain. That's why you've always felt different, misunderstood, like you were speaking a language no one else could fully grasp. And that was never a curse. It was the whisper of destiny echoing through your bones. A quiet knowing that you were made for something more. That the places you didn't fit were never meant to contain you. You weren't rejected, you were redirected. And in that redirection, the divine was carving out something sacred. A path so precise that it required the detours. A journey so holy that it had to be protected from premature exposure. Every closed door was a covering. Every betrayal was a filter. Every silence you sat in was filled with heavenly strategy. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Prepared to carry what only you were designed to hold. There's something in you that the world desperately needs, even if it doesn't know how to name it. A strength that doesn't shout. A grace that doesn't need applause. A presence that disrupts darkness just by entering the room. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. Your quiet is laced with authority. Your solitude is soaked in clarity. Your silence holds more truth than the noise ever could. You are a force wrapped in gentleness, a fire cloaked in humility, a lion disguised as a lamb, and that paradox, that sacred contradiction, is what makes you unstoppable. Because they can't figure you out. You're too soft to be bitter. Too strong to be broken. You love deeply, yet you walk away without fear. You forgive quickly, but you never forget what the pain taught you. You give without conditions, but you no longer tolerate dishonor. That balance, that depth, that's spiritual maturity. That's what makes you royalty in the kingdom. Let them underestimate you. Let them call you too sensitive, too deep, too spiritual, too much. They can call you whatever they want. Just remember, you were never called by them. You were called by God. And when God calls you, no man, no rumor, no opposition can uncall you. The assignment on your life is not fragile, it is firm. It is sealed in promise, it is wrapped in divine timing. You may not have seen the full picture yet, but the pieces are clicking into place. The confusion is lifting, the pressure is revealing. Diamonds. The silence is birthing direction. You are not lost, you are not late. You are in the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning, and everything that felt like a delay, it was divine alignment in disguise. Because he knew if he gave you the platform before the refinement, the weight of your calling might have crushed you. So he slowed the process to strengthen your soul. He closed doors to protect your destiny. He removed people to preserve your purity. He hid you so you wouldn't become dependent on human approval to feel valuable. And now you're walking different, thinking different, seeing different. That's because you've stepped into something sacred. This is your time to walk in full awareness of your power. No more shrinking, no more waiting for permission, no more apologizing for your glow. You've been through too much to dull your light now. You've endured too much to play small now. You've seen too much to doubt your intuition now. You've grown too deep to settle for surface-level living. You're entering a season where your obedience will speak louder than your presence ever has. People will wonder how you rose so quickly, how you recovered so gracefully, how you became so radiant. But they won't understand. This glow came from the crushing. This peace was born in the pain. This favor was forged in fire. And none of it was random. Heaven has been orchestrating your elevation in silence. The divine doesn't need to shout. It just moves. And right now, it's moving for you. Behind the scenes, in rooms you haven't entered yet, in hearts you haven't met yet. In systems that are being reordered to make room for you. That's how God works. Not always loud, but always strategic. And when he moves, everything shifts. So don't be surprised when the atmosphere changes as you walk in. Don't be shocked when the same people who dismissed you start watching in awe. Don't be shaken when people try to come back with flattery, hoping to regain access to what they once disrespected. You don't owe them explanations. You owe yourself peace. And now you've learned that peace is sacred, that boundaries are holy, that silence is often your loudest yes to God. You're not cold, you're focused, you're not distant, you're discerning, you're not mean, you're mastered. You've learned how to protect your soul while still walking in love. And that is spiritual intelligence. That is what separates the called from the chosen. And you, beloved, are chosen, not for a life of ease, but for a purpose that stretches far beyond what you can see. You weren't picked to impress, you were picked to impact. And your impact begins when you own your identity fully, when you stop explaining your light and start walking in it, when you stop watering down your voice and start declaring truth with boldness. When you stop looking for a seat at tables you've already outgrown and start building your own, where integrity is the guest of honor and authenticity is the only dress code. You've cried for this, fought for this, sacrificed for this. Now, it's time to rise into it, not with arrogance, but with reverence, not with fear, but with fire, not with performance, but with presence. Because you were never made to perform. You were made to embody what heaven looks like in human form. So move with clarity, speak with conviction, love without fear, and carry yourself like you already know. The room is blessed because you walked into it. The energy shifts because your spirit is aligned. The atmosphere bends because your frequency is divine. You are not just walking into your season, you are becoming the season. You are the answered prayer, the fulfilled prophecy, the miracle wrapped in skin, and your presence here in this moment is proof that nothing sent to destroy you succeeded. You survived, you grew, You evolved, and now you reign. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them watch. You don't have time to prove anything. You are too busy becoming everything. Chosen one, this is your time. Heaven is behind you. Earth is responding to you. And your spirit is fully ready. Walk boldly, speak clearly, love deeply, and never, ever doubt again. You were born for this.